City Council. We'll start with the calling of roll to ensure there's a quorum. Valerie?
Councilmember Hampton,
Blessed to be here.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Here.
Councilmember Madison,
Here.
Chair Gordo.
Here. So again, this is a special meeting that was called last week in order to allow the committee to ask questions of the candidates for the Police Oversight Commission. So welcome everyone to today's Public Safety Committee meeting. We'll be conducting interviews for applicants that were nominated by community-based organizations, with the goal being to recommend 3 nominees to the City Council to appoint to the Police Oversight Commission. We anticipate that that will occur next week or in the following few weeks, depending on the progress that we make. Before we proceed, I would note that there are maybe even over 30 speaker cards. Given the number of cards and the desire to proceed and the need to proceed with our interviews, I'm going to ask the committee to agree to reduce the speaking time for members to 1 minute. I think most of the members of the public would like to speak in favor of a candidate. If anyone really needs longer than a minute to do that, please inform me at the outset of your comments. But we want to get to the main event. We want to be respectful of everyone's time and ensure that everyone gets to hear the questions and comments from the committee and from the applicants. So if that's acceptable to my colleagues, that's how we'll proceed.
It's good with me. I did have just one question, and it's totally up to, of course, you and the rest of us. Is there a way we could hold the public comment to the end? Because maybe the 30 people that are in, after they hear the interviews, the person that they're going to be advocating for, they may decide not to say anything. Or they may decide to change who they're advocating for because they see that there's someone that's a stronger candidate.
That's a good point. We can do that. And so we'll, rather than hear public comment at the outset, we'll hold public comment. That's a good suggestion, Mr. Ham. And so we'll start with a 5-minute presentation by each applicant, followed by questions from the committee. Each committee member will ask a question for a total of 4 questions. The applicants will have 90 seconds or 1.5 minutes to answer each of the questions. In order to ensure that all applicants are starting with the same information, I'll ask each council member to state their questions while we have all of the applicants. At the moment, we have all of the applicants online with us. After we state the questions, then we'll ask applicants to leave the meeting with the exception of the first one.
Mayor, I'm sorry, that's the point of order that I wanted to address, is that if the applicants are, as I understand, sequestering themselves as a matter of honor, which is appropriate, then I think we can just ask the questions in each interview, as opposed to giving some applicants, a half an hour or more to prepare their answers. It would be a more level playing field if we just ask the questions in each interview.
I get your point. So why don't we do that? Given that each of the applicants is going to be asked to, and has been asked and agreed to tune off the meeting until it's their turn, I think that's appropriate to proceed that way.
Can I ask? Well, I don't want to belabor this, but I mean, realistically, the applicants may not be watching, but I'm sure that their family members and the people that are waiting to speak are watching and probably texting the applicants as well. And so, I'm all for, mixing up the variety of questions, me personally, but I know that the committee has already come up with a suggestion on how to, make every question the same. I kind of feel like if you're applicant number 1, you may, or applicant number 2, you may be at a disadvantage if you don't have the opportunity to hear these questions in advance. But I'm gonna I just want to make that known so you hear it. But I mean, if this is the way it's gonna go. I'm not fighting it. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying that realistically, people are gonna text one another, and I believe that the applicants are going to do the best job to not look, but it's gonna be kind of hard, especially if this is something that is extremely important to you.
We are asking them to be honorable about it, and we're trusting that they will be. I'm confident they will be.
Fair.
Mr. Madison, did you have something?
No, I agree, Mayor. If folks can't be trusted to keep their word about that, they wouldn't have made it to this point of this process, I wouldn't think.
Mr. Kennedy?
Mayor, I just want to confirm the answer to my question. So the committee will ask the first applicant a series of questions, and the second applicant will not hear those questions. So it is my understanding that at the beginning of the process, Mayor, that only one applicant will be able to hear the question.
Yes.
However, Mr. Hampton, Councilmember Hampton raises a good point, and that is, if the public is watching, they could easily take down the question and provide it to their choice for the position. And I'm not sure how we deal with that. I think we need a little guidance from the city attorney or the city attorney to make sure we cover ourselves in terms of a fair and equitable process. I know that's the intent of the whole Public Safety Committee.
Yeah, look, we're asking people to be honorable about the process and their supporters to do the same and not act as you suggest some might, Mr. Kennedy. But let's hear from the city attorney if this is an acceptable way to proceed.
Mayor, I think it is, as you said, it is just an honor system, and the code doesn't necessarily speak towards this. It's the the Public Safety Committee just needs to arrive at a process to select the three candidates, whether formally or informally. So I think what the committee is proceeding to embark on seems fair, as long as the committee's comfortable that it believes people can do the honorable thing.
No. And that's what we're asking of applicants as well as their supporters, family, and friends.
In weighing the upside and downside, wouldn't it be better, Mayor, the way that you initially said that you would want it to proceed, even though it gives some, I guess, a leg up that they would have more time to do their kibitzing or looking at the question, but we would have all the questions out there. We wouldn't have to worry about one of the applicants contacting anyone, and it allows them to, doesn't give them there's no incentive to make that contact. So I'll support either way that you go with, and the outcome. I'll support either way.
Mayor, I'm fine with Mr. Kennedy's suggestion, provided we do public comment after we read the questions. And that way, all the applicants have some time to prepare their answers. Fair about doing the questions to all of them and then starting the interviews immediately is people that are toward the end of the list have, half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour to prepare. Whereas the people at the top of the list have to answer them cold. I know we're all better if we have an hour to prepare for something. If you build in 30 minutes or more of public comment, now it's more or less an even playing field. It still doesn't resolve the problem, though, because it's not just the questions, it's the other applicants' answers. And I want to be clear, the applicants should be sequestered. They shouldn't be watching KPAS. They shouldn't have, a computer on in the other room where they can hear the exchange. They really should come into the interview, each of them, basically sequestered.
Things have a way of revealing themselves if people aren't following the rules. I think Mr. Hampton's point that it's best to allow the public to hear from each of the candidates and then make their comments is probably a good suggestion. So why don't we just, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Hampton, Mr. Madison, if you're okay, why don't we just proceed, ask people to do the honorable thing. You know, this is, of all the commissions, this is one where, well, they're all important in terms of public trust, but this is a new commission and dealing with public safety. This is one where the public trust is of paramount importance, and so I'm confident that the 7 people we have on our list will respect that, as will their supporters, family, and friends. Okay, with that, if we're okay with it, let's.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to make sure that we announce that the order of the applicants to be interviewed, based on the random drawing that was conducted by my office, is as follows: Juliana Serrano, Shoheg Yepremian, Alexis Abernethy, Patrice McKenzie, Florence Anang, Kenneth Roger, and then Michael Aran. That is the order of the applicants to appear for the interviews. So if you're going to proceed now with the interviews, then it would be appropriate for everyone except for Julia Serrano to log off their connection to the meeting and to sequester themselves. And then I will contact them individually to let them know to connect when it's their turn for their interviews. If the committee will give me a minute or two in between each interview to make sure that the applicant is connected, and then we can promote them into the meeting to participate fully, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And Valerie, if you could keep the time and just let each of the applicants know when they have 1 minute left, so that they're not surprised by how quickly 5 minutes can move along when you're participating in a public interview process. So maybe you can just let us know when there's a minute left for each applicant.
Okay, will do.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll ask all of the applicants, with the exception of Ms. Juliana Serrano, to log off. The city clerk will let you know in advance when your term is coming up, your time is coming up to present. And we'll welcome Ms. Serrano. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you all hear me just fine and see me just
Yeah.
fine? Wonderful. Shall I go ahead and get started?
Yeah, we ready to set the time?
Uh,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Welcome, Juliana.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for your consideration of my service to Pasadena's First Community Police Oversight Commission. It is an honor to be considered with the incredible candidates that are before you. Again, my name is Juliana Serrano. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I hope that through my remarks in combination with what you read in my application, the public comment provided in support of my appointment, and how you have known me to show up in our community, that you will get clarity about what I can offer this important commission. I want to start off by acknowledging that I am Latina. I am a first-generation American, a proud daughter to Colombian immigrants, and I grew up in a Spanish-speaking home in Laverne. My parents taught me the importance of servant leadership and about the power of policy. I was privileged to attend Loyola Marymount University, where I was deeply inspired by the Ignatian value of being men and women for others. So I decided to focus my career on social justice and community change. For the nearly 11 years that I have been at All Saints Church, it has been my pleasure to work on a variety of peace and justice issues. I have established relationships with a variety of leaders, a network of organizations, communities of faith, and successfully advocated for efforts that have radically improved the lives of individuals and our communities as a whole. All Saints Church nominated me for this commission appointment, and our mission is to be an Episcopal church walking with a revolutionary Jesus, loving without judgment, doing justice courageously, embracing life joyfully, reverently inviting all faiths and people into relationship for the healing and transformation of ourselves, our community, and the world. Rector Mike Kinman says that All Saints Church has a generations-long commitment to courageous justice. That is a commitment that we do not hold by ourselves, but we share with an incredible network of communities and organizations throughout this region. Juliana has been a primary connecting tissue for this network for more than a decade. She absolutely is necessary for this commission to do its best work and represent all of Pasadena. I want to share that the appointment to this commission is important to me also personally. When Kendrick McDade was shot and killed by officers of the Pasadena Police Department in 2012, I was compelled into action in a way that had not happened before. My journey of listening and learning began then, a journey that brought me to sit with the pain and suffering of my Black siblings, a journey that brought me to have incredibly uncomfortable and challenging conversations with law enforcement. It is a journey that I still tread, and one that has taught me valuable lessons in leadership and advocacy and understanding trauma, racism, community, and its intersections with policing. For more than 7 years, I stood with community leaders in advocating that this city establish civilian oversight of the Pasadena Police, not because I think that oversight is the solution to our problems, but because I've always understood that oversight is a tool with which we can make necessary improvements to policing in our community. That through transparency and accountability, trust can be claimed and healthy and positive relationships between our police and community can be established. The commission will have a giant mountain to climb, and it is critical that the right people are selected for the commissioner roles. I joined others in Pasadena demanding that you help make certain that the commission is filled with those who have most skin in the game, that you select Black, Indigenous persons of color who are impacted by police violence, that you select persons that have demonstrated their commitment to improving police-community relations. Because after all, we can't ignore the harsh reality that policing is not experienced by all people in the same way in Pasadena. No, the culture of policing most often clenches its sharp fangs, its deadly fangs on Black and brown bodies. I know that at times I have made the PPD and others in leadership uncomfortable as I have offered an ample amount of critique about the department and its failings. I do this because my faith calls me to speak power. My responsibility is to stand with those who feel that they don't have a voice, because we must ensure that this community is safe, gives dignity and respect to everyone when interacting with the police. I push in ways that I do because I want to make the Pasadena Police Department a great department that equitably and justly serves everyone who lives, works, or visits this beautiful city. Until we get there, I will continue to fight and make demands that we do better. I will continue to listen and learn from everyone in my work, and I will be firm in stances to do what is right for those who are marginalized and oppressed. I thank you for your consideration, and I guess now I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Serrano. Let's start with the first question. The first question is going to come from Mr. Hampton.
Hello, I do have, my first question is, if the facts of a situation lead to a different conclusion than the official position of the city, how would you handle it?
Well, I think that especially in this work, Councilmember Hampton, this is very likely going to happen, right? That there is going to be a potential declaration made by the city that does not resonate with what the community is seeing, feeling, and how they desire both the city and the police department to respond. I will say that I'm not afraid of tension. I'm holding that space for us to have those courageous and brave conversations about those differences. And I hope to work with the commission in creating those opportunities for us to really be able to engage in dialogue, not just have conversation, but true dialogue where everyone feels valued, respected, and heard, so that we can come to greater understanding of how we can make things different, how we can make our police department different, and better serve the needs of the community.
Thank you.
Next question is from Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Ms. Serrano, for participating in this process. Please share with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney, prosecutor, city council, police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department. I'll repeat it. Please
Thank
share
you.
with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney prosecutor, city council, and police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Definitely a big question to try to answer in 90 seconds, so I will do my best. In terms of my skill set, as I mentioned in reference to Councilmember Hampton's response, I am not afraid of holding tension and working through tension and conflict. And I do believe that is a particular skill set that not many possess. I am an effective communicator, and when it comes to this matter in particular, I think I have a proven track record of being able to work with and engage the Pasadena community, and also work with and engage the leadership of the Pasadena Police Department. The issue of policing and police reform is something that I have been studying for more than 7 years. As I mentioned, since the tragic death of Kendrick McDade, I've done my own work to educate myself and to understand the different models of oversight that exist, the different issues that are involved in policing, and have in fact on many occasions fancied myself an attorney as I've explored some of these legal matters at hand. It's something that I'm very familiar with, and will commit to continuing my journey of education and understanding. I think that will all contribute to better oversight of our Pasadena Police Department and create systems of accountability that serve the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Madison?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Juliana, for that opening argument. It was impressive, and we're blessed to have a lot of really highly qualified applicants here today. I guess my question is, do you bring into this work a particular agenda? And by that I mean not the sort of aspirations that you see in terms of a fairer, more just policing effort in Pasadena, but more specifically, have you advocated for any more operational, organizational, budgetary, programmatic, personnel modifications to date, or do you bring that into this work? Is there anything out there that we should know about in that regard?
I mean, in all fairness, Mr. Madison, I think that, Councilmember Madison, I think that there are probably too many instances of my advocacy to count and to share with you and the body today in terms of trying to make our police department a better police department, right? I think one of the most recent issues that I worked on with members of the leadership of the department was on our use of force policy in regards to AB 392 and making sure that we are compliant with the new state law. So I have on several occasions throughout the years worked with the police department, worked again to highlight some of the deficiencies, some of the areas of opportunity for us to improve our police operations and work together in order to achieve that. Because again, my agenda, my goal is to make sure that we have a police department that is serving the community in the way that it desires to be served, and that ultimately we reduce the amount of violence that we see at the hands of police and the number of people who identify as Black and persons of color who are the ones negatively impacted by that violence. That is my agenda. That is my goal in everything that I do and how I would show up on the commission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My question is, this is a complex matter, and for me, the issue of fairness is important. So, what in your personal background, as well as your professional background and life's experiences, make you, if not the best, one of the top 3 candidates to be appointed to this commission. Again, focusing on the issue of fairness, focusing on the issue of your personal and life's experiences.
Thank you, Mayor Gordo. I think that as a Latina, as I mentioned, as a first-generation American, I know in many ways what it's like to be marginalized in the communities that I have been in. And I know some of the struggles, certainly I don't know all of the struggles of persons of color, but I know many of them. And it is fair and just and right to center justice work on the voices of the most marginalized. And that is something that I think I've done throughout my career. And it's something that I continue to be centered in. That's something that I would offer commission also, right? An opportunity for the work ahead of us to be centered in voices of people of color. That is how we change systems. That's how we change structures. That's how we create a more just and equitable society, is by bringing in the voices of the people most impacted into the work.
Okay, thank you. I think that completes our questions. And we want to thank you for, first and foremost, being willing to apply and work on this important issue of public safety and improving our police department. Your willingness to come to our meeting and answer questions and allow the public to hear your answers as well as members of the committee. So good luck and thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, my pleasure. Good evening, bye-bye.
Right. Okay, that brings us to our next candidate, and that would be
Shoheg Yapremian.
Shoheg Yapremian.
She is connecting now. Second. So Ms. Yapremian is now in the meeting. You can unmute your mic and start your video, Shoheg.
And for some reason, you can't see me. Can you hear me?
We can't
We can hear you.
But you can't see me, correct?
No. You may want to,
we could have
by
you
any chance.
disconnect and maybe reconnect if that's what you want, or you could try and start.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, it says,
There you
Oh,
go.
there you are.
Thank you. Can I start?
Welcome, Wedge. So you'll have 5 minutes to presentation, as you know. You can take less than that, but you can't take more than that to be fair to the other candidates. And then each of the committee members will have a question that's also being asked of each of the other candidates for appointment. So with that, welcome, and why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Gordo, Council Members Madison, Kennedy, and Hampton, and staff. Good afternoon. I would like to start by describing myself as a community member living in the city of Pasadena. Of course, everyone has a story, and their life experiences, I believe, shape their future. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon. Most of the years I lived in Lebanon, I lived in civil war from age 9 to 18. In early 1984, the U.S. Embassy announced that they were pulling out their citizens from Lebanon. We joined the employees and others on board USS Trenton to Cyprus because our lives were in extreme danger. After we arrived to the United States, I finished my last year of high school, then went to Glendale Community College, then to Cal Poly Pomona. I was interested in public service, and therefore I interned with the City of Glendale Planning Department, and then moved up the ranks community, which gave me a great insight on the internal operation of our police department. Again, to answer the question why this position is important to me and to my organization, I would like to go back to my childhood years growing up in Civil War, where justice and human rights did not exist or matter. Being a grandchild of genocide survivors, hearing their brutal stories and their attempts to survive and fight for justice. Also practicing city planning for 17 years, where we considered every aspect of our community's needs in our planning policy. Having lived in Pasadena, serving my neighborhood, the Armenian Community and Police Chiefs Advisory Committee
1 minute
makes
left.
me a well-rounded individual. But since this appointment to a community-based organization, I realize that it is extremely important for my organization to be part of this commission, because the Armenian community has been an integral part of Pasadena for many years. We have 6 churches, 3 schools, 3 community centers, and of course the Genocide Memorial in Memorial Park. We have many Armenian businesses who contribute to Pasadena's economy. What is more important, that ANCA has always fought for justice for more than 100 years. We fight for justice at local, state, and national levels. Therefore, it is important for our community that ANCA be represented on this commission. My participation on this commission will bring diversity and balance to the commission. I will end by thanking the Public Safety Committee for giving me and my organization the opportunity to apply for the Police Oversight Commission and speak this afternoon. I can assure you that if selected for this commission, I will be a fair judge in every decision I make while serving on this commission. And hopefully I make the 5 minutes.
A little bit over, but.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Miss, thank you for the presentation, and let's jump right into the questions. Mr. Hampton?
Hello, how's it going?
Hello, Councilmember Hampton.
I have a question for you. It is,
Sure.
if the facts of the situation lead you to a different conclusion than the official position of the city, how would you handle it?
Well, I always believed that the facts of the case, in any case, and I've done hearings on planning cases for many years in Glendale and in Pasadena, the facts of the case are important in making a decision. You know, sometimes you have to weigh the facts of the case. That's very important. And as a commissioner, you have to come up with your own conclusion. The city at times make recommendations, of course, but as someone who hears the case, you have to make your own decision.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Next question is from Councilmember Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy?
Welcome, Ms. Premium. Please share with the committee the skill sets and experiences or experience you possess that will assist the city attorney, prosecutor, city council, and police chief in greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department. Would you like me to repeat the question?
That's okay. I think I kind of understood the intent of the question. I think I served as a public servant for many years in the city of Glendale. I worked closely with the police department on some cases related to, for example, alcohol-related cases, land use, zoning matters. So I understand how the department functions from government perspective. As a hearing officer, I understood how the departments review cases and make recommendations. I believe I can be a good judge in how I make my decisions because I know exactly what things to look for in order to reach a positive decision that's justifiable. So I think given my public service experience in government as well as in private sector where I represent cases, so I believe I can be a good judge.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I muted myself there. Next question is from Mr. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Premian, for those comments. And my question is, as we embark on this work, it's still sort of being formed in terms of the approach and the protocols and what I've kind of jokingly referred to as the shape of the table sort of issues are still defining themselves. We have an IPA that we're interviewing, an independent police auditor also, and forming the commission. There'll be training and a period of time to sort of spool up. My question though for you is, do you bring to this work any specific agenda other than the overall betterment of our policing? So for example, have you advocated for any operational, programmatic, budgetary, personnel, legal, procedural, any particular policies on our police department in the past that you would bring into this work?
Well, except serving on the police chief's advisory committee, I don't have much information in terms of the changes, unless we have items on the agenda that would give us the opportunity to make policy changes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the last question is for me. So, Mr. Premian, fairness is an important issue as we look to improve the police department and policing in Pasadena. What in your personal background and your professional background and your life's experiences makes you one?
I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, that I think I come from part of the world that, again, where human lives and justice hardly existed. Having an Armenian background where we constantly had to listen to our grandparents talk about the genocide and the tortures they faced. So from growing up, I always had to really stand up for justice. That made me who I am today. I think joining ANCA was also part of that reason, because it's an organization where we do fight for justice and human rights at every level of government and also globally. Again, in terms of my work experience, working for local governments gave me the exposure of public service, looking at communities and how you can improve communities based on fairness for every aspect of the community, regardless of race and ethnicity and culture. Again, experience with Glendale, culturally diverse, how to incorporate all of that in your day-to-day life, in our planning efforts. So that's my cultural background made me who I am today, and the service that I want to give to the community, either through ANCA, through my neighborhood association, or even this Oversight Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Premian. So that completes our questions. I just wanted to thank you for first being willing to step up and submit an application. but also being willing to attend our meeting today and um, answer the questions of each of the committee members, and as well, and invite the public to listen to your comments and your questions. So thank you, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, everyone. Do I log out right now, or?
No, I think you're welcome to.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah,
We will put her back in the not waiting room, with the regular viewers, and we will bring in Alexis Abernathy next. So you can
Very
watch the
good.
proceedings.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay.
We are waiting for Alexis Abernathy to connect. And there she is. Ms. Abernathy, could you, not yet. Oh, yeah.
Oh, not.
No, you're good. No, sorry.
Okay.
They
Okay,
popped
good.
up your PowerPoint. So Ms. Abernathy has
Okay.
a PowerPoint as part of her presentation, but she'll start now.
Okay.
You're ready to go.
Ms. Abernathy, the process is you'll have 5 minutes. You can take less than, we're trying to be fair and ask people to stick to the 5 minutes. And then you'll have a series of questions, one from each member of the committee, and you'll have 1.5 minutes to answer those questions. So welcome, and your time starts now.
Thank you very much. Well, it is a pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you. I am a clinical psychologist, and one of my areas of research specialty is occupational stress. So back in the late 80s and 90s, I was actually doing some work related to anger and racism with San Francisco minibus drivers, the cable car folks, as well as I had a relationship with the Rochester Police Department as a research consultant. So part of my interest in serving on the Police Oversight Commission time has to do both with that past experience, which include opportunity to do ride-alongs and work with the team, the professional development team there, to help officers manage their anger more effectively. In some work contexts, that's an important skill no matter where you start. You need to be able to engage and develop those skills more effectively. And at that time, there was also concern about police excessive use of force and some misconduct that was going on. So there was a desire to influence that, make some changes, and even in some cases, prevention, get ahead of that. The challenge was that there were police officers doing, great job, but there are others that were not serving, really protecting and serving the community in the way that they needed to do. And so that's one of the things that has influenced my interest at this time. I am also an African-American woman living in this world at this time. And like many of us, these incidents and inappropriate and excessive use of force incidents just continue to pile up. And last year, as a result of the racial pandemic, I really started to say to myself, I was really prayerful about it. How might I be able to serve my community more effectively in making a change in this and calling these things what they are, being honest about them, and really seeing about some change on a local level. So as Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and some things just need to change. We've had these incidents here locally that, and I would call them murders because they are inappropriate use of force and excessive use of force incidents. So that's my personal reasons and my motivation at this point for wanting to serve. And I was actually being prayerful about it. How could I serve more? And in the context of that, in my PowerPoint, the PowerPoint could come up now, the president of the Links, Pasadena Altadena chapter of the Links Incorporated, Charmaine Mills-Ely, asked me, encouraged me to apply for the Police Oversight Commission. And I looked at it, the timing was just perfect. It was within a week of my having prayed about how could I serve more directly in serving in my community here in Pasadena. So as you see the links incorporated, and we can go to the next slide, it's linked in friendship, connected in service, 16,000 professional women of African descent, founded in 1946, committed to raising awareness on economic, health, social justice, and other barriers that affect our quality of life. In the next slide, please. And the Pasadena Altadena chapter, the links, and I've been a member since 2005. We've served the youth in this community for the past 56 years through education, mentorship, and scholarship. And these are some of our signature programs. We scholarships annually. The Saturday School was a major, made a major difference for our young folks. And I've been part of this Links Up to Success through mentoring program that has won awards, and thank you, is in its 10th year. Next slide, please. And we address social inequities, want to see equitable treatment for our sons and daughters, and committed to efficient and effective operations of civic government organizations. Next slide, please. And we have also supported this Justice and Policing Act of 2020. And we see that as a major step toward racial justice and accountability for law enforcement. My participation in the Pasadena Police Oversight Commission will provide an opportunity for the links incorporated in the Pasadena Altadena links to engage in these efforts on a local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Abernathy. Good timing. Next, we'll jump right into the questions with the first question coming from Mr. Hampton. Councilmember Hampton.
Ms. Abernathy, thank you so much for applying and taking the time out with us. If the facts of a situation lead you to a different conclusion than the official position of the city, how would you handle it?
Part of the problem is the facts need to be truthful. We need to understand what is actually transpired. And in the role as a community, part of the Police Oversight Commission would be really to highlight, okay, there's an official position, but what are the other dimensions of it? Part of how I look at things and understand behavior, it's always complicated. So it's important to understand the varied positions of all involved, and then to come to some understanding of what is the reality. So there are varied perspectives. I do understand politics, but there are varied perspectives on these matters, and then there are what your eyes see and what's before you.
Thank you so much.
Next question is from Councilmember Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Ms. Abernathy.
Thank you.
Please share with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney prosecutor, city council, and police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department.
First, as not only a psychologist, which means I'm a student of behavior, but also given that I have past specific expertise with a police department, I do understand some of those nuances that some citizens might not. But I also understand as a citizen, the intersection of racial dimensions and racial dynamics and emotional dynamics in encounters. And I particularly highlight dehumanization. Some of what these more horrible incidents reflect a dehumanization process that is very troubling. But one of the things I can offer in that's that othering of somebody that you don't even see them as a human being. and then you don't treat them as a human being. We need to, the literature clearly speaks to this, we need to articulate that, understand how that happens, and work so that that does not continue. So those are some of the areas of expertise that I bring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Councilmember Madison. Mr. Madison.
Thank you, Dr. Abernathy. I've really appreciated your remarks, and you bring so much to this, to the your application.
This is a complex issue and matter, the issue of policing and public safety, as you well know. One of the words that comes to my mind when I think about it is the word fair. What in your background, as well as your professional and life's experiences, makes you the best or one of the top 3 best candidates for appointment to the Community Police Oversight Commission?
Having been a former staffer to California Assembly Speaker Karen Bass, and currently serving as a staff member, I'm Deputy Chief of Staff to School Board Member George McKenna at the LA Unified School District Board of Education. Often in my role, I am privy to sensitive information, and it requires me to maintain a great deal of discretion, a great deal of tact and diplomacy, and I have to maintain confidentiality about lots of things all the time. I do not keep my job. I do not keep my good reputation. I do not have good relationships up and down the state of California by being someone who doesn't know how to hold those things confidential and doesn't know how to make sure that I am maintaining discretion on sensitive issues. So I know that this work is definitely very delicate. It is very sensitive, and it requires somebody that gives the honor and respect to it that it deserves, and also is going to honor the process in terms of being discreet and knowing that whatever information that you're privy to, it's only for you on a need-to-know basis.
Great. Thank you. That completes our questions. Just so you know, the process we'll continue with the questioning of other candidates. I want to first and foremost thank you for your willingness to submit an application, and then your willingness to appear before this committee and members of the Pasadena community, our residents, and answer our questions. Good luck to you, and we'll be in touch, and we'll see you on Friday night at the Rose Bowl.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor to serve and an honor to be considered.
Thank you.
One second while we contact Flo. Miss, I should say. One second, we're having trouble finding her in the Zoom. 1 second. Yes. Yes. Ms. Anang, is that you? Okay, hold on 1 second. There she is. Yes.
Welcome.
We'll have
You're
you
muted.
unmute your.
Hey, everybody, blessing.
How are you? So let me just explain the process. You'll have up to 5 minutes. We're asking everyone to try and stay within or under 5 minutes in order to be fair. And afterwards, each member of the committee will ask you a question that's also being asked of every other candidate. So welcome, and at the 1 minute, at the 4 minute mark, the city clerk and or his staff will alert you that you have 1 minute left.
Okay.
Thanks.
So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. All right. Good afternoon, Public Safety Committee. To answer your question, I must flip it. For these 3 seats, as the community understands, are for organizations that are based and rooted in Pasadena, doing the work of police reform and social justice. So let me introduce my branch, NAACP, for it's where I've had a seat at the table for the past 7 years. And from that seat, I've been able to learn from my community and to understand the legacy, not just of the branch, NAACP, but the many economic, political, and cultural dimensions that is Pasadena. Our branch has produced many great leaders, presidents that have greatly impacted our community, let me introduce you to some of our former presidents. Ruby McKnight Williams, the first Black woman to work in administration in the city. Dr. Edna Griffiths led the lawsuit against the city to desegregate the Brookside Plunge, and our first African-American doctor at Huntington Hospital. Effie Sapp, president during the Rodney King beating. Taylor Morton, our first president under 30, who is currently on our executive board, full circle. John Kennedy, our youngest president, who is now currently serving our community as the District 3 council member, also the first council member to present a proposal for Oversight Commission to the full city council. Dale Yarbrough was a 2-term president and a PUSD excellent principal. Joe Brown, 6-term president. Gary Moody, also a 2-term president and in the forefront of the Kendrick McDade killing. Crossing over 100 years is our current president in his 2nd term, Mr. Alan Edson. Never mind all the executive committee members of our branch, which has been rooted in Pasadena for over 102 years doing the work of social justice. Last summer, with the partnership of Enzalon, we held 2 caravan protests that were both in attendance by the thousands. As the lead organizer, I would like to thank the police chief, command staff, city manager, and staff for their cooperation, ensuring both caravans were peaceful, safe, and full of community unity. On Juneteenth, with a partnership with Enzalon and other grassroots organizations, NAACP and Enzalon, 2 long-standing and local people of color-led organizations were instrumental in presenting the Community Bill of Rights. That in the 12 demands, one of the 2 is the reality and reason why I'm being interviewed for today, a police oversight commission and an independent auditor. I care about communities, whether it's Navarro and Howard or Villa and Chester. It's about all the voices being inclusive, especially the marginalized, silenced, the immigrant, and even the ill-informed. Creating spaces and platforms where it's not about the wealthy or political agendas, but we are all in this beautiful struggle called community. I sit here today representing my branch, my executive committee members, and the groups that I'm in around the city, but especially my after-school and summer camp, full of Black and brown families and kids who have grown to trust me and know that I speak life and declare that they are all created with excellence and purpose. Those who know me, I hopefully will say that it's not about me being right or wrong, but my faith declares, let's find an oasis of righteousness through intentional and consistent communication, revealing that relationships truly matter to me. We cannot allow the elephants in the room to get bigger because we choose to be silent over obvious injustices. The ability to move conversations to the truth will be the key. Our Police Oversight Commission is a table where a group of 11 people can build strategies that produce equity and processes that reveal trust and transparency. This is one of the many goals of the Commission, to be a bridge builder of understanding of both sides, police and community, that has been so fractured after years of mistrust, not just the police, but government systems. Pasadena has never been on this journey before. To fill these 3 commission seats with people who reflect the community most impacted by color and race is a great place to start. I hope that's the victory our community sees, and I know it deserves. I thank you from NAACP Pasadena branch, our president, Alan Edson, the executive committee members, and all of our members in Pasadena and beyond. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Florence. The first question will come from Councilmember Hampton. Mr. Hampton.
Good evening. Question 1. If the facts of a situation lead you to a different conclusion than the official position of the city of Pasadena, how would you handle it?
If it's the fact, it's the fact. If that's the truth of the matter, if that's the truth of the conclusion, then there's nothing more to be said, if you see what I'm saying. You can't go outside and argue and say, well, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't agree with what was decided at the table. What's decided at the table is what's decided, and if it's fact, it's fact.
thank you.
Okay, can I,
Go ahead.
I just want to follow up on that. So I'm saying if the facts are different than what you have seen or what the commission has seen, how would you handle that?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. The
Okay.
facts that the city, I'm sure that there are things that the city has produced at this point, right? That you may disagree with. I'm asking, how would you handle it as a commissioner?
Then you have to, one, handle it with the commission. I mean, if your question is regarding something that is a commission regarding question, then it has to be handled at the table as an inside situation. And you have to go through all the channels that is available to you to bring that situation to light. Am I going to run out in the street and start cussing people or saying, you know, that the city is lying? That's not even in my nature. But what is in my nature is to push for the truth, even if the truth of the matter coming from the city is completely against what I know the truth to be. Then I am going to stand and say that my integrity would stand and say that I do not agree with the city's result.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Councilmember Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy.
Welcome, Ms. Lanang. Please share with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney, prosecutor, city council, and police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department. I'll repeat the question. Please share with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney, prosecutor, city council, and police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department.
I think that if you look at my record, even from the beginning of Chris Ballou, one of the main things we decided to do was there's always assumptions. The community has an assumption, and obviously the police have their story. But what we decided to do was to have community dialogue and to also ask the police chief to trust us to have frontline officers to be asked the question. I think it's about bringing people to the table. And I think that's the part that I know that I'm good at. That's the part that both sides see me and say that I'm not for you or against you. I want us to find the answer in the dialogue. I want us to find the answer in the argument. And through those community discussions or at Kebulon, there was a lot of growth. There was a lot of understanding. There was a lot of aha moments for the police and for the community. And though we had the break after, COVID, we continued them just recently with Let's Talk, Let's Listen, because I still feel that it's about trying to understand two cultures and two voices. And the voice of the police is adequate. Every policeman wants to go do his job. Every policeman wants to clock in, clock out, and go home, be with their family, and live their life. But so does every single community member. And the tension that lies in within is just about the communication. And I believe I'm a bridge builder.
Thank you, Ms. Anand.
Thank you. Final question is for me. And as you know, policing. Sorry.
Mayor
Right. Mr. Madison. Next question is from Mr. Madison. Councilmember Madison.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Anang, for your comments and your application. You're highly qualified to serve on this body. What I want to ask is, are there specific policies, procedures, be there operational, programmatic, budget, anything at all that you advocated with regard to the Pasadena Police Department, such that you would bring that past work into this work, and if so, could you describe that for us?
I think training. I think one of the things that we did in these past 5 series was every Friday, the police listened to the community conversations, but they didn't speak, but they were present. But every Friday, a group of stakeholders and a group of the police, they got together and were able to be frank with one another. The police were able to say what they liked, what they didn't like, what they pushed back on, and what, they agreed with. And the conversations were rich and healthy. And I feel like it's in those training moments that we can bring to the table of what does training look like? What does it look like to bring community and police together, and not in some adversarial, you've got to be right moment, but maybe, I never thought of it that way. And maybe, I never thought of it that way. And I think training of what does it look like to reimagine community training with police, reimagine it, not the old dimension of a police officer that's been in the street and doing stuff, and then he comes and then he talks to the police officers and they understand him because that's peer to peer and stuff like that. But what does it look like to actually bring certain community members into that space, have a respect, go through some hard dialogue, but know at the end of it, both sides are learning something. And, that's what happened, I felt, and maybe the community stakeholders said it themselves, that there's things that they learned from the 3 officers that were able to engage with us every week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Final question is for me. And as you know, this is a complex issue, policing and public safety. And one of the words that comes to my mind when I think about it is fair. And so my question is, what in your background, as well as your professional and life experiences, makes you the best candidate for appointment to the Community Police Oversight Commission, or at least one of the top 3?
I don't know. I think I have to go back to the fact of I'm willing to draw people together, even in uncomfortable situations. My after school and summer camp is TK to 7th grade. Everybody knows kids gonna be kids. But if anybody's ever been around my camp, they know that the way that my conflict resolution is to bring both of the kids, and I'm not saying police is kids or whatever, but to bring both of the kids together and ask them to listen to their story, and then say, did you hear what was being said? And do you understand how it made that child feel? Like I said, I'm gonna keep going on to it, is that we move by assumption. Whenever we move by assumption, then usually we then go into offense. And once we go into offense, we don't hear nobody no more. And that, I feel, is the space that has happened with the police and the community. That from assumptions to offense, I don't want to hear you no more. And yes, there's actions that's taken place, but we got to bring it all the way back around, because if we're going to live in this beautiful struggle called community, we have to keep dealing with each other, because both sides have to exist and both sides need each other. And both sides are dropping the ball. Let me get that real clear. But both sides have to face up to where they're dropping the ball, take accountability, learn from it, and let's get better.
Thank you. With that, that completes our questions, and I want to first and foremost thank you for your willingness to stand up and submit an application for appointment, but also your willingness to answer our questions and the questions of each of the committee members before the committee, as well as before the public and residents of Pasadena. With that, that completes your interview, and thank you, and we'll be in touch.
Blessings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you see Mr. Roger?
Next is, I'm sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
Next is Kenneth Roger.
He's coming in now. And we'll ask Mr. Roger to unmute your video and audio. There you go. And Mr. Roger, when you're, after the mayor gives you time, just let us know and we will bring up your PowerPoint, but the mayor starts first.
Mr. Roger, welcome. Just let me go over the procedural aspects of this interview. First, you'll have an opportunity to make a up to 5 minute presentation. We're asking everyone to be respectful of the time. In fairness to all of the candidates, you can use less time, but we ask that you not go beyond the 5 minutes. And then each member of the committee will have an opportunity to ask you a question that they are asking of the other candidates. Okay, so welcome, and whenever you're ready. Oh, and at the 4 minute mark, when you have 1 minute left, Valerie from the city clerk's office will alert you so that you can adjust appropriately.
All right. Thank you so much, and I'm ready as soon as the PowerPoint gets pulled up. All right. Good evening, Mayor Gordo, council members, fellow nominees. My name is Kenneth Roger. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm here on behalf of the SGV LGBTQ+ Center. I'm going to tell you about our community at the intersection of race and queerness, and how our community is disproportionately targeted because of it. First, I want to acknowledge that I am a cisgendered white male. I understand that I have a privilege based solely on my gender and the color of my skin. Members of the public, my fellow nominees, and members of the City Council will have had experiences that I can't fathom nor understand. Next slide, please. The SGV LGBTQ Center is 100% volunteer-run nonprofit corporation. It was founded in 2011, and we are currently the only organization serving the LGBTQ community in Pasadena and the SGV. Our mission is to promote a safe and inclusive SGV for all people of all orientations and gender identities. 50% of our board are Pasadena residents. We understand the needs and concerns of our community, especially LGBTQ people of color. We currently have over 2,000 active members, and we are growing rapidly. Next slide, please. Members of the LGBTQ community are targeted by law enforcement. LGBTQ people of color are especially vulnerable. In 2012, the Williams Institute at UCLA conducted a study of Latinx trans women in Los Angeles County. 71% of these trans Latinx women reported negative interactions with law enforcement. This included 67% reported verbal harassment, 21% were physically assaulted by police officers, and 24% were sexually assaulted by law enforcement. In 2013, the Williams Institute found that 48% of LGBTQ victims of violence experienced police misconduct. This included unjustified arrest, excessive use of force, and entrapment. This is after these LGBTQ people were victims of violence and they sought police assistance. In 2015, the U.S. Transgender Survey found that 58% of trans people experienced police misconduct. This also included verbal harassment and persistent misgendering, and it escalated to physical sexual assault and being forced to perform sexual acts to avoid being arrested. Now, what does this lead to? It leads to a persistent distrust of law enforcement and the underutilization of police when they're actually needed. 40% of gay or bi men think that the police are unhelpful or very unhelpful. 60% of gay or bi men think the police would be more helpful if they were a heterosexual woman. 50% of trans people are uncomfortable seeking police assistance, and 1/3 of all LGBTQ police complaints are never even fully addressed. Next slide, please. I want to take a moment and talk about two women, Jane Thompson and Dominique Lucius. Jane Thompson is a white trans woman killed by police on May 9th, 2020. After her death, she was misgendered in official police reports despite repeated requests from her family and her friends. The local media also continued to misgender Jane. Both the local police and media continued to dead name Jane for over a month after her death. Next is Dominique Lucius. She is a Black trans woman who was killed April 8th, 2021, less than 1 week ago. She was also misgendered in official police reports and the local media. She was dead named repeatedly, though that has been corrected. She was also the 13th transgendered person to be murdered this year. We are in week 14 of 2021.
1 minute left.
Thank you. Next slide, please. There is a severe lack of LGBTQ representation in Pasadena. In 2014, we were named the second gayest city in America, and 7 years later, where are we? We have 0 LGBTQ elected officials and no representation for LGBTQ people of color. This is a problem. Next slide, please. What are the solutions to the problems I have addressed? Every report from the statistics I mentioned earlier made similar recommendations. Outreach to the LGBT community, civilian complaint review boards, advisory board with LGBT communities, increase department awareness of LGBT issues, and create LGBTQ community advisory boards. In short, they are all recommending that the LGBTQ community be given a seat at the table. Please, in terms of this committee, do not leave us behind. Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. We'll go straight to the questions. First question is from Councilmember Hampton. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. First question is, if the facts of a situation or case lead you to a different conclusion than the official position of the city of Pasadena, how would you handle it?
Well, that depends on the authority that I am given. If I am allowed to voice that opinion, I would. If I am not allowed to voice that separate opinion, I would not. I would definitely approach the people who have made that decision and present my findings and my facts in the most effective way possible, which in my training and as an attorney would be just put it out there and address any and all questions and also address the facts that are counter to my position.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Councilmember Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy.
Welcome, Mr. Roger.
Thank you.
Please share with the committee the skill sets and experience you possess that will assist the city attorney prosecutor, city council, and police chief to bring greater oversight, accountability, transparency, and positive transformation in the Pasadena Police Department.
First, the skills I've already mentioned is I am trained as an attorney, and I do, in my current position, I weigh evidence and I provide recommendations to judges. And so in review of a case, I would review the facts and see what conclusions it supports. and I would go with that. And sometimes in my current position, it is not what I want to be the case, but it is what the facts present. And in my training, including some anti-bias training, I have learned to weigh those facts I say in absence of my bias, but recognizing that I have this bias and then looking at the facts while acknowledging that I may or may not have a bias in one way or another. And to support transparency, I would be very open with my positions, again, with what I am allowed to be open with. As an attorney in my position, I am trusted with a lot of confidential information. And if something is confidential, I do not disclose it, not to my partner, but only to people who I am allowed to disclose. And so if I'm allowed to disclose something openly and transparently with the public, I would be more than happy to do that. The other skill set is I can phrase my words properly, and so that I do have that public speaking skill set. So in case something does come up and I do need to make some sort of statement, I can do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Councilmember Madison. Mr. Madison.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Roger, for your application and for your thoughtful comments. You've spoken to some extent, and I think your PowerPoint demonstrated if not an agenda, certainly a strong interest in a particular aspect of policy making. But do you have specific sort of a specific policy agenda vis-a-vis the Pasadena Police Department that you would bring into this work?
I do not. The main goal is to be a voice for the LGBTQ population, and that includes the LGBTQ people of color population. And as I kind of mentioned in my slides, is we do not have representation in Pasadena. And I think just being a voice on this committee does increase the trust that the LGBT community would have with law enforcement, because right now it's not there. And so, no, I do not have a specific agenda or motive other than bringing knowledge and awareness to the issues that my community faces.
I know that you cited data about law enforcement generally. Do you believe that there is not trust with that community in Pasadena with our police department?
Well, I know one of the studies was done in LA County, so I would say that would include Pasadena. I do think that just based on being gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, there is an element of fear in interacting with police. I don't know how deep it goes. Again, I acknowledge my privilege in that my queerness is not readily apparent, but to some of my trans friends, they do have that fear. If they are pulled over, what police officer are they going to get today?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roger, as you know, policing and public safety is a very complicated matter. One of the words that comes to my mind when I think about public safety and oversight and policing is fair. Having in mind the word fair, what in your background as well as your professional and life experiences makes you the best candidate or one of the top 3 candidates for appointment to the Community Police Oversight Commission?
Well, I have mentioned my ability to weigh evidence and analyze facts in terms of fairness and not necessarily in terms of political agenda. And so I think that definitely speaks highly to that. I also think that in order to begin having a fair system, we need to acknowledge our shortcomings. And I do think that this committee is a great way of doing that. I know Chief Perez has instituted a lot more trainings, which I think is a great way of doing that. But I think in order to be fair, we need to be upfront with our biases, implicit or explicit, as well as just what we bring to the table. And so I would say that because I do have that previous training, as well as a desire to see my community represented and put at ease a little bit and be a little safer, I do think that my placement on this committee would accomplish that.
Thank you. With that, that concludes or completes the questions and concludes the interview. We want to first thank you for your willingness to submit an application, for being willing to attend our committee meeting, answer all of the questions, not just before the committee, but before the residents of Pasadena and the public in general. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and good luck with the rest of the evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roger.
And
Final.
we are bringing in Miss Ron. She's now connected. Hi, Michaela.
Hi,
Ron, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you all. You tell me when I start, is that how this works?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is you'll have 5 minutes to present. We are trying to be fair about it and ask that you hold to the 5 minutes. You can, of course, use less time if you like, but up to 5 minutes. And then each of the council members, committee members will ask you a question that they're asking of every other candidate.
Okay.
So with that, whenever you're ready. Oh, and at the 4-minute mark, Valerie in the city clerk's office will alert you that you have 1 minute left, so you can adjust accordingly.
Okay, terrific. All right, we'll begin. Mayor, city council members, city staff, thank you for taking the time to interview the candidates for this commission. This work is incredibly important, a long time coming, and a terrific step forward, but incredibly complicated. And it will take some time to mold the commission into a body that is accepted and supported by all stakeholders, providing confidence to the community. I am Dr. Michaela Rowan, founder of Public Works and Learning Works Charter School. This nonprofit has been in Pasadena for over 25 years. Public Works is a research firm that has studied multiple programs and government systems related to social service, education, public safety, and workforce development. I have always considered myself a researcher first and an educator second. My graduate degrees are from UC Berkeley with an MA in political science, MA in education administration, and PhD in education policy. 13 years ago, I founded Learning Works that serves the highest risk youth and young adults in the community, focused on high school dropouts, many system impacted, mostly impacted by the probation and foster care system. It is in this work I became very familiar with Pasadena policing, probation, parole, and many populations living in the communities of Pasadena. 3 years ago, Homeboy Industries asked me to come on as the chief of their education and research, which has given me a wider lens to the impacts of the systems on youth and young adults. More exposure to the older populations and exposure to gang impacted persons and communities, and policies and practices related to mass incarceration and policing. Father Greg graciously wrote me a letter of support for this appointment, and I believe it's in your application.
Yes.
I want to first answer the question, why is this appointment important to my community-based organization? And in this case, it's actually two. It's Learning Works and Homeboy Industries. Both support me for this appointment